guys. Corey's awake. It's another miracle of God. He's very tired, but I told him, I said, you got to get up. We got to do this because I have to release what God was telling me this morning. And he said, okay, what are you going to talk about? I said, I'm going to talk about what God told me.
Right. And so I will find out like you.
A lot of times I'll say, Corey, what are you preaching about this week for home church? And I'll say, I'm going to preach about the Bible. Yeah. So that's what that feels like. Mm-hmm. This morning, my schedule got reversed. And usually I sit down and I'll do my listening prayer. And then I'll go through and I'll do my Bible reading and some other stuff. And my schedule got reversed. So I sat down and I started doing my Bible reading this morning. And God was like, I want you to do this first because I'm going to tell you something through this. And this morning my Bible reading was on, it was still in Mark, but it was talking about chapters, Mark 11 through 13 is what I was doing today. Jesus is like sitting there and he's talking to the disciples, you know, going through everything. He's foretelling about the resurrection. And he says, I need you to go get me a colt or a donkey. Mm-hmm. And so they go and they're like, well, where are we going to get this? What are we going to say to the people? And he's like, just tell them that the Lord needs it. And I'm going to prepare the way for you. I'm going to send this. Mm-hmm. And God didn't say, go get me the most handsome steed that you've ever seen. Or go get me a chariot with horses. Right. He said, get me a donkey. Right. And a donkey is considered lowly. And Remy, stop. A donkey is considered to be lowly and just like less than. But God went in power and might, even in the lowliest of situations. And he was saying, it doesn't matter what I ride in on. It matters that I ride in and that I go. And then, through chapters 12 and 13, there were some other things he was saying, but that's for another time. So this morning I sat down to do my listening prayer, and I felt this electricity just running through me. And God started telling me two things in Hebrew. One of them I understood, the other one I still don't know what it means. But he said, Hanini, you said, here I am, Lord, send me. So I am sending you to the nations, to my people. Get ready to fly. The timeline has been sped up. There is no more delay. No more delay. Get ready to move into a new season, a new time. The old wine cannot hold, or the old wineskin cannot hold the new wine. It would explode. So I have made you into a new wineskin to hold what I am about to pour out. The walls and boundaries have been expanded. The purification is complete. Step into the promise of the Lord. Complete the new tasks before you. Come and see my goodness in the land of the living. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Every promise is being poured out. Every word is alive. Nothing is dormant any longer. What you thought was dead, I speak life to and say, Ku'um. Rise up. Dry bones live again by the word of the Lord. New giftings are being poured out. New wine. The crushing is over. This is a new wine that you prayed for. Acceleration, a new time frame. Be ready to move. No more delay. And then I had a vision of, I used to have these above ground planters that were on our front porch. Mm-hmm. And last year I had this garden and it was great. And my favorite thing about the garden was these eggplants. Mm-hmm. And it started as just this little tiny seed. And then it grew into this pretty large plant. And then all of a sudden I had this eggplant that was about this big that was on it. And it never got any bigger than that for the eggplant. Right. That was there. But it was this vibrant purple color. And what God was showing me in the vision is, he said, you took a little seed and you put it underground. And when you put it underground, you covered it. Mm-hmm. It was buried. You thought that seed was dormant. But then things started to sprout up out of it. Mm-hmm. And eventually you saw the fruit of it. What he was saying is that there are so many that are in that season where you feel like you've been buried, you've been crushed, you've been covered, that you are dead and dormant, that you're lying there in the cave and that there is no time to be waking up. But he says, Ku'um, you are rising up, you are getting out of this season, that this new time has come where it is going to be an explosion of what he has promised. And it's going to be a new timeline that he is sending this in as well. That is not just going to be by the timeline that we see with the Gregorian calendars or the Hebrew calendars. This is God's calendar, and it is His timeline that is making these things all happen. And there were so many times in this wilderness season we've been in where I told Christ, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I gotta crawl under a rock. I can't do this. But God was saying that in those times when I was trying to crawl under that rock, I was really going into the shelter of the Most High. I was being hid in the rock during those seasons. And it's not that we were under the rock to just roll over and die. We were in the rock for protection, and we were in the rock for a covering. It reminds me of when Moses asked to see Jesus' face, and he said, go behind this rock and I will pass by you. It wasn't that he wasn't wanting him to see him, or that he wasn't wanting to be there in his presence. He was protecting him under the rock as well.
Yeah. Amen.
What do you say?
Well, often I
ask the Lord, have you put me on the shelf? Are you done with me?
because in this season,
we
were just
doing things online, and then in the house church, just very
few people coming and things like that, and sometimes I
felt like that, like God, you hid me away, and but He did that
with, Jesus himself hid away.
He wasn't. He was
30 years old whenever he
started preaching, so there was a time of hiddenness. There was a time, but even in his own
ministry, he would go to the mountain,
for 40 days and 40 nights, fasting and praying. He would go into
wilderness places to be hid away and spend time with the Father.
And so the Lord has been preparing us, and we've been
pressing into the Lord
during this time, during this season.
And, there is the time of showing.
This is what God told Elijah. He said, I want you to go to the brook, and I want you to stay there until I tell you, until I show you to Israel.
And the ravens fed him
right
there.
Yeah.
For sure. And I know that there's a lot of people who've been in this season too, like spring. I know that you've been in this season where you're in the wilderness, you're being tried and you're being tested as well. But there is a new timeline, and it's not just going to be that you're going to see schools open up for you to be able to have the service in, but there is a church building that is coming to you as well. There is property that is there, not just a place that you rent and that you're in on one day, but it's going to be a place that you are going to be in a permanent location with the brick and mortar that's the cornerstone. And it's not just going to be one day a week where you're having services for God either. It's going to be a time where there is going to be multiple ministries coming out of this there that are going to be coming forth, and that you're going to be speaking through. All of those plans that you had originally for your ministry, those things aren't dormant either. They're still alive, and they're still going to be coming forth. And all of these trials that the devil has been bringing against you as well, these are things that were meant to distract you, discourage you, and try to break you down. But we are overcomers by the word of the Lord and our testimony, and we are going to see the goodness and the fruitfulness of this. One of the things that I was reading about this morning was Jesus walked by a fig tree, and it didn't have any fruit on it, and he cursed it. The next time they went by it, it was withered and had gone away. But then they see another fruit tree later on that is full of leaves and bearing fruit. And that's what we're going to be in this new season. What you felt like was a cursed season where you were withered and dead, God is turning it around, and he's saying, no, there is new wine. There is new wine skin. This season has been about making that new wine skin. I don't know anything about tanning of skin, but the process of tanning of skin, from what you've told me, it smells, it stinks.
Oh, yeah.
It's not fun work, right?
No, not
What
at
goes
all.
into that process?
So you take so you got to skin the hide, and then you got to stretch it out on these boards. And once you
You put hooks all in it,
and you stretch it out, and then you scrape.
Stretch it.
Yes, it's got to be stretched completely, so that
you don't tear it whenever you take the fur off of it, and
you got this tool that you scrape
the fur off of it.
But then you put it in this
Process
where every animal has its own tannin. That tannin is what every plant has tannin, every animal has tannin, and there's enough in it that can tan its own hide. And so, but a lot of times my dad, he would use,
Is this the word?
That's what I heard, that I wasn't understanding. I thought it was, okay. God tells me these words sometimes, and I have no idea what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, Corey, what does this word mean in Hebrew or Aramaic all the time? But it was literally tannin.
Yeah. So every animal and every plant has tannin, and what it is it is the thing. It is the chemical process whereby that it can be tanned and made into leather, and so. But a lot of times, Dad, he would add things. He would add hog brains, really, not kosher, but anyway, still, and very smelly and very awful. But he would put it in this wash machine thing and just get it in there, soak it into the hide, and that would make it soft, and it would make it able to be what it would become. It's a process that would take place there, and it takes it from something that is hard to something that's soft and pliable and something that can be used.
That's exactly what it was.
It's a process.
Not only have we been in a refining season, but God said that He's been giving us the tannins to make us soft and pliable and able to be used too.
Right.
Like, I literally had somebody tell me at work I was too soft. And I was like, I'm trying my best here. I'm doing everything I can. And I was praying about it. And God told me, He said, I did not make you to be hard-hearted, to be jaded, to be of the world. You are not a businesswoman. You are a child of God. Right. You are to be soft and pliable.
Right. Yeah.
So it's that tannin process that, there's so many of us that have been going through it too. And it's not just people who are stepping out in ministry that are going through this. I mean, the families of those who are in ministry, those who are working in your 9-to-5 jobs, you've been going through this process too. And those tannins, it says that they are what creates that bitter, sour, mouth-puckering sensation when you eat something. But it is a complex structure in wines that is used throughout the aging process. And when they put wine into one of those oak barrels, it makes the tannins multiply as well.
Mm-hmm. The process.
And then it said that research suggests that tannins can help reduce blood pressure, accelerate blood clotting, and exhibit anti-mutagen or cancer-inhibiting properties. So the things that are trying to kill you, to destroy you, God's saying, no, I have the tannins here that are protecting and that have been multiplying it. And even though tannins in the tanning process itself softens something and make it pliable, it's also a form of protection too. Tannins bind to animal proteins and raw hides, permanently altering them to become flexible, durable, and rot resistant. There's also traditionally used in production of natural dyes and inks.
Yeah. And then there's also the heating process where you smoke it, and yet it is not consumed. It is not burned up. It is not. It's not like you set it on fire. It's that you build a fire so that it can be the smoke can enter into it and help that process as well. And sometimes we felt like we've been in the fire. We felt like that, but it was not to burn us or consume us. It was to make us what God would have us to be.
Right. And I know my parents have been going through this as well, where it's just one attack after another, and you're like, I'm Muhammad Ali in the boxing ring, like a butterfly sting like the bee, but really you feel like you're being pummeled.
Yeah.
And then I know some really dear friends of ours have been under severe warfare, especially the Sims. And they've had so much coming against them. And I know like Victoria, you and Vandy have been under it too as well. And we're seeing that all of these people that are stepping out into ministry and they're saying, I'm going to do what the Lord has done. You've been fighting against all of these attacks, this warfare. There are these principalities, especially here in White House, where, I mean, the mascot of the school is the Blue Devil.
Mhm.
So there are principalities that are over these areas, and you're seeing things come against it. And people are getting offended so easily by words that are said when, you know, you're trying to speak in love, but say, this is what God has told us we need to tell you as far as, you know, concerning holiness or the Bible or being consecrated before Him.
Mhm.
But there's a lot that comes against you when you try to speak out and say, okay, this is what God's told me.
Yeah.
There's been times that God's given us messages and we're like, I don't want to do that. And then the day that God rebuked me and He said, you said Hanini. Are you going to do what you said or not? Are you going to be true to your word? And it's like, yeah, I'm true to my word. And then He sits there and He tells us, every word and every promise I gave you, I'm going to be true to. This is not on your timeline. This is not what the human mind sees, but this is on God's timeline. And that's part of what He was telling me this morning, was that He is accelerating this timeline of these events and that we're seeing it be sped up in the natural realm. Get ready. He told us before, get ready to run, be boots on the ground. Now He's saying, get ready to fly. How much faster is it for something to fly than it is for it to run and overcome the obstacles in its way? When you're flying, you're right over everything.
Right.
There is not obstacles in your way unless you're flying alone. There's an Empire State Building and maybe King Kong.
Okay. But I thought about this, you know, Jesus, even in His public ministry, He was telling the demons to shut up.
Nobody talk about
Me being the Messiah and all this stuff. Don't say this, don't say this. And then whenever He gets the donkey, He's like, it's time. It's time to show myself to Israel. And they're calling Him Son of David, and He is, and the Pharisees are like, rebuke them. Don't have them talk about this. Don't have them call you Messiah, because they were afraid of Rome, like hearing, oh, He's the Son of David, He's the Messiah. And Jesus said, if I rebuke, before in His ministry, He would rebuke the devils and say, don't say it. They would say, we know you're the Messiah, we know you're the Christ. And He would say, don't speak it, don't say anything. But then when it's time for His showing, it's time for Him to get on that donkey and go into Jerusalem, down the Mount of Olives. People are laying their palm branches down, which is like, it's like our American flag.
Right.
The palm branch is like the symbol of Israel. So it's like this patriotism coming back to the people, saying, Hosanna, save us, Son of David, save us, Son of David. And the Pharisees are like, tell them to hold their peace, tell them to hold their peace. And Jesus said, if these should hold their peace, the rocks would cry out. Right. He does not rebuke them. He said, it's time for the show. It's time for me to reveal myself to everyone.
That's part of what I was reading this morning too in Mark 11, where He told them, go get the donkey. But the thing is that there's lines of people along this road that Jesus is going to take. First off, they didn't have TV to tell them Jesus is going down this road.
Right.
These people gathered on their own. And then they get their coats and their palm leaves and they're laying it down. And they're making this regal procession for Jesus, who comes riding on this lowly donkey for Him. And then they are yelling, praise God, blessings to the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessings on the coming kingdom of our ancestors, David. Praise God in the highest heaven. They're yelling, Hosanna, Hosanna. And that was one of the things that I had wrote down when I was studying this morning, was what they were yelling as well. And that, you know, you don't have to come from prestige. You don't have to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth. None of that matters. If God calls you and anoints you, that's what matters. Your calling is not ordained by men. It's ordained by God in heaven. Elohim is the one who calls you and does that.
Right.
Your credentials don't matter to Him.
Right. And one of the interesting things in Mark is just how many times Jesus is telling His disciples, the Son of Man's going to be betrayed.
we're going to Jerusalem. And they do not understand.
They don't understand the time frame. They don't understand the mission. Something that the Lord dealt with me last night is assignment. He was just saying this word over me, assignment. And in 1 Corinthians 12, it says that there are gifts, and then there are ministries, and then there are workings of God, the workings of God. And so God gives us gifts, but then we have an assignment. It's not just to use that or just to feel good. Like God give you a gift of tongues just to feel good, get the goosebumps or whatever. Or God give you prophecy just to, have it. he gives you then an assignment, something to do. It's like there's a heading. We're going into Jerusalem. We're
Right.
doing this. And so when God gives you that assignment, it's like what you do with what God has given you.
Right.
So,
What you're doing with the mantle He's placed on you.
right.
And if you're going to walk in that and, fulfill the Great Commission,
Mhm.
that's what it is.
Right.
So that's what I got this morning when I was praying and what I was hearing. I know that God's been speaking a lot to us. He's been confirming a lot to us.
Mhm.
Something that God told me on Monday morning, He confirmed 3 times to me yesterday.
Mhm.
By some preachers and pastors and stuff that we trust and listen to, where they were basically saying the same things in their sermons, and it's like, how many times do you read a Bible story and then all of a sudden it comes alive before you,
Right.
and you're like, whoa, I never understood what this meant.
Mhm.
Like, I texted my friend and I was like, I'm literally shook right now because I can't even fathom what's being said
Yeah.
and what God's doing.
Right. And I feel like that He is going to accelerate things. It's like, doors have closed and delays have happened and this and that. And it's like, okay, God, we've got these promises and confirmations everywhere. It's like everywhere we go, we get these confirmations and, all this stuff. And it's like, yes, we know God is speaking to us. And yet you look at what God is saying and what reality is, and it can look like 2 different things sometimes.
Walking by faith.
It definitely is, yes. And God is saying, yeah, but whenever it happens, whenever I open the door, you're going to have to run. You're going to have to be prepared.
Right.
You're going to have to, truly be in faith.
Yeah, and part of my Bible reading today was where He tells them, I tell you that if you say to this mountain to move, that it has to move.
Mm-hmm.
When He was speaking about the fig tree withering up, and they were like, Lord, you just cursed this thing yesterday and it's dead. And He says, if I tell you, if you have the faith of a mustard seed and say to this mountain, move, it will be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's what we're in this season, is having the faith and listening to God. And when we felt like we were buried under 6 feet in our grave, and some of us, including me, had just rolled over and been like, okay, I'm done. This is all. There's nothing else for it.
Mm-hmm.
God's saying, no, get up, dance on the grave that you once lived in.
Right.
As Corey says, watch me dance.
Yeah. But I just thought about, the disciples, they were like, all right, now it's time. Jesus is going to go up there on the temple, and He's going to sit down on the throne of David, and it's going to be like, there was expectations of what it was
Right.
going to look like. And Jesus does go up to the temple, and He turns over the tables, and He gets a whip, and He starts calling everybody vipers and snakes. And it's like, oh, this is not what I was expecting to happen.
Right.
So just whatever the Lord wants you to do is what's going to happen. And it may not look like you think. Public ministry may not look like what you think. The assignment may not look like what you think. But there is an assignment. There's an important one for everyone to have. And I just feel like that the Lord, help us to know our assignment. Lord, help us to know what this process that we're going through, what this tanning process is. You were talking about the tallit of Elijah, the mantle of Elijah. Elijah wore a rough garment, is what it says. That it was it was leather garment, and that's why John the Baptist
Right.
is like Elijah, because he wore camel's hide, he wore leather, and a leather girdle around his waist. And praise the Lord, I didn't think of that. But the mantle of Elijah is his authority and his ministry and the assignment that is there. And it's not going to be an easy one, but there's a necessary assignment that is upon us that we have to step up into. The Lord has work to do. It's the Lord's ministry. It's not my ministry. It's not our ministry. We may call it unhindered ministries, but what it really is Jesus' ministry. What Jesus wants to do on the earth, and we're just along for the ride.
Well, that's all I got.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.